Nations do not become great because they are lucky. Nations become great because their citizens work hard, they pull together, and they care about their children. And when they go astray, they can go down fast. Consider for a moment, and I won't delay you on this, consider for a moment the fall of Britain as a great power. When Queen Victoria celebrated her Golden Jubilee, the 50th anniversary of being the Queen of England and being the Queen of the Empire, every person who lived within the British Empire was given the day off to celebrate the Jubilee. Do you know how many people celebrated around the world? 1 out of every 4 inhabitants on the face of the earth took the day off. That was how big and sprawling the empire was back in 1898. Well, what happened? Britain went astray. It allowed its schools to deteriorate. It drifted into marginal wars, and it sank deeply into debt. Sound familiar? Of course it does. It should, because that also describes America today. And guess what? A half a century later, by the middle of the 20th century, Britain had become a second-class power. Poof! It all went away. It can happen here. And that's what is such a big concern. Now, some people think we don't really have to worry. After all, as Bismarck once said, God looks after fools, drunkards, and the United States of America. Yeah. But that was back in the 19th century. I'm not sure that China and India and Brazil pay a lot of attention to Bismarck today. They're gaining on us and gaining fast. I would like to think that my own generation, the generation essentially the baby boomers, I'm sort of a preemie in that generation. The generation of the baby boomers can rebuild America, that we can renew the spirit of America. But I'm not as hopeful as I once was. Somehow, my generation has not quite lived up to what we hoped. Many of us were spoiled as kids, growing up in the early 40s. We splintered apart during the 60s and 70s. A few served in Vietnam. Many others protested and ducked. And we're now deeply polarized in our politics. I keep hoping it will grow up as a generation and turn things around, but I'm not holding my breath. What is clear, however, is that your generation, the millennial generation, represents rising hope for America. I believe you're different, that you care about changing the way we live, that you think this polarization is stupid, that you want to pull us together, that you're determined to turn over a new America to your own children. Not all of you, but enough of you to count. I see your generation bringing a renaissance in the American spirit. Your generation showed what you're made of just a couple of weeks ago when helicopters full of young men, not much older than you, flew as Navy SEALs into the heart of darkness. There, deep into Pakistan, they masterfully found and dispatched the world's leading terrorist, Osama bin Laden. You know it was an extremely dangerous mission. They came very close to failing. One thing we had not gotten quite right. After all the things we got right, we didn't quite understand how warm it was going to be. We thought it was going to be much cooler that night. And when heat rises from the ground, intense heat rises from the ground, and one of those helicopters starts coming down, that heat can turn off the engines in the helicopter. And that's exactly what happened to one of those helicopters. And it crashed, and only because it had a terrific pilot did they get that helicopter down safely, and they got those men off safely. They showed the courage and the grit of a new generation of Americans. Now, across America, college students poured into the streets, chanting USA, USA. Some were offended by those demonstrations, arguing we should not be proud of taking another life. But the critics got it wrong. Those students, those undergraduates were cheering because America had once again shown it had the resolve and the know-how to accomplish another great enterprise. Now, across this country, many other young people today are showing that same determination and grit and devotion to country as they volunteer in droves to serve as teachers, mentors, helpmates to young children. This spring, Teach for America will send 4,600 new teachers into our toughest public schools. In September, 4,600 new public teachers into our toughest public urban and rural schools. But think about how hard a selection it's going to be. Do you know how many people applied for Teach for America this year for those 4,600 slots? 47,000. 47,000. Outstanding seniors from universities all across the country, and yes, including Bentley. Indeed, I sense this renaissance of the American spirit right here on this campus, among those of you graduating today. Your president, Gloria Larson, is immensely proud of you, as are your faculty, for the promise that you hold. You should hold your head high as you enter business, because you will be the producers of this society, people who create new jobs as well as goods and services. We live in a day when an estimated half of our population receives more from government than we pay in. Now, it's morally right to support those in need, but it's time we also honor those who create the jobs and the wealth that makes compassion possible. As Massachusetts Senator Paul Tsongas told us, it doesn't make sense for anyone to love employees and hate employers. Now, Gloria Larson points out that because of your education at Bentley, the way you integrate the liberal arts with business classes, ethics with accounting and finance, you're also a generation that is setting out to redefine the role of business in our society. You understand that business does share in the responsibility for the devastation wreaked upon millions of families by our recent financial crisis. Business does share some of that responsibility. There was too much greed, too much recklessness. Yours is the generation that must bring fresh leadership to business, leadership that is socially responsible and accountable. Many of you have shown social commitment here at Bentley. No less than 1,350 Bentley students were working this past year, and almost 100 community service projects right here in Waltham and all across the globe. Bentley is the first university in the country to partner with City Year. I'm also very impressed and pleased that Bentley is launching now a Center for Women in Business, and that President Larson has had the wisdom to recruit a dear friend and former colleague, Betsy Myers, to become the founding director. I can tell you from personal experience, Betsy is a ball of fire, and she will help to prepare, along with Gloria and others here, thousands of Bentley women to play leading roles in the years to come, as they should. We must. There is nothing more important to reviving the spirit of America than to ensure that women who go into the workforce have an equal shot at the top and that they can play leading roles. We have too many women getting educated today to continue seeing the C-suites closed off and the boards closed off to only a minority. It's one of the essential roles of your generation is to open those doors widely, and for men to honor the women who are coming up and understand that we have to have equality on there.